Chris, this is the electromagnetic pulse, which you brought up at the beginning, EMP as it's also known. It was a warning in bright neon lights about the fragility of our growing technological infrastructure. Does the EMP make an appearance in cinema? I mean,
the Matrix is the most
of course,
obvious
the Matrix. They use EMPs to fight the
squiddies, the machines.
Right, of course.
There is the book. There's a book. I don't know how well known it's called. It's called 1 Second After, and it's written by somebody who's long wanted to warn our government about the effects of an EMP. Specifically, I believe detonated somewhere over Kansas, roughly central to the United States, which would effectively black out most of the country. And a lot of things that people, unless your equipment is very specifically hardened or predates something or is like in a Faraday box or whatever, it's gone. I mean, planes are going down, cell phones don't work. And by the way, it's like you said, Ed, it's fried. They cannot be rebooted. They cannot be restarted.
They can't just be turned back on.
They can't. Yeah. No, this is not, blow in the cartridge, put the Nintendo 64 back on.
Right.
It's done. This was my understanding when I read this book. And that is a much more terrifying outcome when you really think about it than a detonation, slightly above the surface in like Chicago, for example, which is the premise of House of Dynamite, which just came out, the Catherine Bigelow film. Because ultimately you see the fragility of our entire system, which is based on electronic infrastructure. Not only is our power grid, all of our information systems, we really don't have, paper-based information system backups for most things at this point in time.
Of course.
Everything would fall apart. Your food system, your refrigeration systems, your medical systems, your utility systems, you'd be back to the Stone Age.
This is this is Blade Runner 2, right?
There was, I believe, a nuclear setback or something like that. There was an information dark age in Blade Runner 2049 that they reference. Yeah.
And they're back to paper.
Yes, as a protective measure. And I believe in Dune, I'm going to get this wrong. Somebody in your audience correct me. I think Frank Herbert, the way he describes their technology in Dune is like a different technological branch than the computerized systems that we used. I don't know if that's because of any sort of reference to EMPs, et cetera, but it's just, again, it's an example of a different way of, creating information systems than what we've relied on.
It's wild to think about. It would set us back to roughly what, like 1850?
Yeah, I actually would think earlier because we don't have any of the skills that folks had, broadly speaking.
That's a great point.
So
you're right, we don't have... We'd have to relearn all of our... You'd
be going back pre-agricultural, revolution. I think you'd be going basically back to hunter-gatherer in a lot of senses. You'd have... It's funny how you realize how surface your knowledge really is. I could tell you that I vaguely understand solar flares. If anything goes wrong with any piece of equipment in my life, I could not diagnose it.
Right,
I would need to take it to the Geek Squad, and they only know how to, do X, Y, or Z things. And that's been the benefit of specialization, right? Is that you can make advancements on these specific tech trees, but you're very vulnerable if it's disrupted.
Yeah.
That's why we should all go to trade school.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And this is why EMPs are also a big deal in the survivalist community because
makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of obsession about, as you mentioned, Faraday cage protection, having vehicles that use no electronics.
All the push to start cars with computer chips. I mean, I think the average vehicle has dozens of computer chips in them by now.
Yeah. What could you even get? Something from the early 90s and before?
Yes, you'd have to go back to a purely, even the ignition has to be mechanical and not electrical. So it's a wild, and you're going back to the 70s.
I worked with a gentleman when I was at Intel years ago who was kind of a Mormon prepper, and he had a homestead out in Arizona. And he, aside from a wall of guns and a wall of flashlights, he also had a tractor that I believe ran on, it was a wood-burning engine.
What?
Yeah.
Like a steam engine.
Effectively, yeah. And that was... You actually, I believe, can see a version of it in the movie Train Dreams, which I also highly recommend. But anyway, he was a hardcore prepper, and he had all of these redundancies that did not require any electricity.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you have his number?
He didn't give it out to anybody. I don't know why. He just didn't want us showing up at his squad.
Exactly.
Compound.
You have the coordinates of that. Anyway,
he's like, what are your skills? And I was like, I can craft a tight 90-minute podcast, sir. Would you let me in?